So I think that there's sort of like a storm brewing now in the SEO community in regards to that.
Hey, Magnus here from Search Royals, and welcome to The Crawl. Today I got Nicolas Montanares, our technical SEO specialist with over a decade of experience in SEO, and former head of technical SEO at the leading iGaming affiliate, Gen2 Media. What's AI doing to technical SEO, and how can it be leveraged? Who's the most annoying person in a marketing team?
Boss, obviously. I would say.
Boss?
Yeah. So luckily, technical SEO is much more like scientific than general SEO. General SEO is just guessing, essentially. It's like philosophy or whatnot.
Let's get into it. As our technical SEO specialist in-house, I have to ask this. How many times this week have you had to fix something that developers optimized and accidentally created a whole bunch of other mistakes?
That's a good question. I mean, it happens, of course. The communication with developers is very important, right? But it's hard to put a number on it specifically. But yeah, I do remember a couple of times where unfortunately things that were supposed to bring up the performance actually brought it down instead.
So big cases or small cases?
Usually small cases, nothing major, no.
So something like trying to fix the page speed and then actually having the page actually load slower?
Usually what happens is that I ask for a fix to be done and they do that fix correctly, but then other things break, right? And then they have to remove the fix, and now the other thing is also broken. So then they had to, now they have two things that needs to fix. And then when we apply this fix that I originally asked for, then we have to take into consideration these other things as well. So maybe the performance isn't quite as high as it could be.
How do you keep in mind the other fixes that have been completed over time and what they've done so we don't mess this up?
So we use Jira, and there's of course a lot of different task management tools that people can use. And usually I do double checks and post release checks and stuff like that to make sure that everything is correctly implemented.
Yeah. What about this whole just educating the developers in what kind of the checks you look for and you use in regards to what they maybe think, because it's two completely different worlds.
Yeah, so there it's also very important not just to tell them this is broken, please fix it, but maybe also explain to them how you found the issue, what tools are you using to check the issue, so that they can then replicate the checks as well. That's something that I've experienced to have great success. Essentially, is that they if you give them the tool themselves and they will check it themselves. And then once it's working, then they deliver it to you instead of not telling them that and then having to go back and forth a million times with the developers.
Oh yeah, so you end up actually testing yourself when they say it's done, but then you find out it's not done because they haven't done the same tests.
Exactly. Yeah.
You're the one actually implementing these fixes or telling the developers this needs to be fixed and prioritizing all this.
And also fixing
also fixing someone while everyone just talks theory. What's the most satisfying technical win you've had recently?
Well, actually, recently there's this delaying JavaScript based on user interaction, which is sort of like a cheat almost. It's a bit gray area in regards to technical SEO, because essentially what you're doing is that you're delaying JavaScript until the user interacts with the website. And that's really good for scores on Pagespeed insights and stuff like that. But in reality, it sort of hides the problems under the rug, because you might have really unoptimized code and you're still running that unoptimized code, but you hide it from the tools. So that's sort of a easy win that I've got recently, where we just implemented this on a bunch of sites and then all of a sudden the score skyrockets. But it's important to keep in mind that the code still needs to be optimized and maybe have a staging environment that doesn't have this feature implemented, so that you can sort of see the impact of the individual scripts.
And what kind of impact had this resulted in so far? Have you seen anything?
Yeah, so we went from performance score on Pagespeed Insights from 60 to 93 or something. On desktop was up to 100. So yeah, really big spike there. And
of course, yes. Hoping for those green bars and numbers in Search Console instead. Yeah. Exactly. And then hopefully we can see some traffic on it as well in the future, maybe.
Yeah, it's very difficult to create the link there between technical SEO performance improvements and actual changes in rankings and changing in the general SEO landscape. But The way I see it is that technical SEO is sort of the foundation of a website. So if you have a bad foundation, then no matter the content you add or the links you build, you will always have sort of like a problem because you're not exploiting the maximum potential of the different the content that you're adding or the links that you're building.
Yeah.
So by having a solid foundation, you're making sure that essentially you're getting the most bang for your buck for that you're spending on content and links.
So you actually came in onto this yourself, that technical SEO is more of the foundation to this whole SEO. Is kind of if you don't have the foundation in place, then you are not getting the optimal thing out of everything else. How would you prioritize that over, let's say, building more content versus fixing some errors?
Well, I mean, it's difficult. There has to be a balance there, right? Of course. So like if you have like really, really bad content or no links at all, then of course the technical SEO isn't going to like lift a lot. But I would say it's sort of like the first priority in a way, just so that when you get started, at least you have like a really good foundation to run upon. Of course, this like idea that technical SEO is the foundation and that you don't exploit the maximum potential of your content and links, that's not something I came up with. Of course, that's something that has been said many times on different like forums and whatnot.
So it's not that you have this die-hard opinion that we need to fix everything technical first because you kind of know the ins and out of all the different disciplines within SEO?
I mean, a website is made of like lots of small details in a way, right? And technical SEO itself is also just made of a lot of small details. But you can't, aim for full perfection in technical SEO before you start, proceeding with content and stuff like that. So there has to be some sort of overlap. There has to be a lot of communication cross department. But I think that the technical SEO part should come first. But then there's of course like a balance that has to be applied there, and maybe don't fix it like 100%, but like 90% or whatnot. Just a good moment to kind of say when, and then the other departments can sort of take over and start building up their stuff.
Yeah. So this whole thing about like diminishing returns, because of course there's something that has more impact than other things. So you start with the low hanging fruits first. But that kind of also relates to like how much of your time do you spend on fixing, let's just say, basic shit for maybe a lot of SEOs versus actually trying to, let's say, optimize structure or implement a whole new set of technical, let's say, actions that improve rather than fix.
Yeah. So like, I mean, I always go for these like low hanging fruits first, and then low hanging fruits is not necessarily things that are easy to fix, but things that have an impact, right? So if maybe sometimes there are things that are slightly harder to fix, but will have a large impact, and there it makes sense to prioritize those. But then that will really depend on the different websites and the different like scenarios that I'm faced with, and that sort of determines the strategy that I'm going to lay down for the technical implementations.
Is there a difference in like the let's say the service or the product that the different websites have compared to what you focus on first? So are there any specific things you should look for first within e-commerce or service-based or SaaS or stuff like that?
I mean, my procedure is always exactly the same, regardless of the type of site. But then further down the line, when I have like a list of different issues and I have to prioritize those issues, then I might prioritize them differently depending on the type of site there is, right? So if it's like e-commerce site or whatnot, I might focus more on like the indexability of the product pages and things like that. Whereas if it's another type of website that isn't e-commerce, I might focus on other types of fixes.
Yeah, of course. That also makes a lot of sense because there's in my head, when you look at technical SEO, it's a lot about you want to optimize structure on a bigger scale rather than trying to fix one page. Usually, so JavaScript, for example, it's usually for a lot of sites, it's a mess that like goes across everything because it's usually, if it's not optimized, it's just a script that's put in and then sidewide, and even though a lot of pages don't actually use it.
Yeah.
How much time do you spend trying to like make custom on a page level?
So the way that I would approach that would be to sort of determine what sort of page types this site has, right? And then depending on that, you know that like if the blog type pages have this sort of issue, and then you check a couple of other ones and they also have this issue, but then you check on some other page types and they don't have that same issue, then you can sort of conclude that this is true for all blog pages, and then you can sort of like apply this fix across that page type. But essentially that would be the procedure, right? It's like focus on page types in order to like sort of like combine these problems and also figure out sort of the priorities they have.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Also in the business sense, of course, because you also always want the revenue, sales, leads, rather than just
that's the most important. Yeah,
trying to perform on Pagespeed insights.
Exactly.
So people always use this famous analogy of SEO as just like building a house. You mentioned the foundation yourself, and technical being the actual foundation. So before you can build the frame of everything else, you need let's say the concrete foundation. Are you sick to death of that comparison, or is it actually a good way to try to understand it, or is it just a weird analogy that just stuck?
I love metaphors. I'm always using metaphors to explain complex concepts to people. So the house thing is perfect. I would say the foundation. I speak about foundation, and it is to some extent very true. But the foundation of that SEO house would be actually DevOps, I think. So the server and all that sort of stuff. But and then the frame of the house would be the technical SEO, I would say, just to clarify the
frame. Yeah. So
yeah, I'm very into metaphors, and I really sort of empathize with that idea that like the website is a house, and then every single content is the furniture and whatnot.
So you're actually saying that you don't spend a lot of time on the foundation, you're actually spending more time on the frame of the house.
So if you consider the fact that the foundation would be DevOps work, then the frame of the house I think is more the technical SEO.
Building the walls instead.
That's very like niche and specific. I guess it kind of sort of depends on how you see things, but yeah.
Yeah, and in the SEO world, everything depends on everything. So that's
very true.
Okay. Now it's time for a little segment we call Do Follow, No Follow. So I'm gonna say a statement, and I'm gonna ask you to say either do follow or no follow.
Okay.
Depending on if you agree or not.
Right.
The first one is Pagespeed tools are useless. Real users don't care if your site loads in 2 seconds versus 4 seconds.
It's no follow.
You don't agree with that? Why not?
Well, I mean, studies have shown that the time it takes for a website to load is really important. People bounce if it takes longer than a certain amount of seconds. It just creates a bad user experience generally. So you should definitely aim for below that 2 second mark and as low as possible in reality.
But how do you differ between what the tool says and what actual users experience? Because again, there's a lot of difference between where they're using the site, what internet connection they have, and stuff like that.
I mean, the tool is just like a tool, right? So it just measures the impact. Of course, you shouldn't take it like down to the just take it with a grain of salt. But it is a really good indication of the performance of the site. And different tools, of course, give you different metrics and whatnot. But overall, I would say that I trust the different tools and what they tell me, and they usually turn out to be right. So.
Yeah, trusted enough at least. Yeah. Okay, second one. Mobile first indexing means you can ignore desktop completely.
I would also say no follow. Of course, mobile is extremely important. Most websites, the majority of people using them are going to be accessing the site on mobile, and this actually is like a big problem because we're all working on desktops, right? So often we don't see the issues present on mobile, especially with like responsive stuff. But so that's why it's really important to just like once in a while just take out the phone and just check it there, or like use dev tools or a tool like Browser Stack to like check all the different devices at the same time. But yeah.
But how, just taking in maybe industry in this consideration, because I know probably in the B2B space, there's a lot more users on desktop compared to mobile. So maybe the mobile sections are being even more neglected because we kind of assume that people, they might look at it on the phone, but they don't use the phone when they're actually ready to purchase.
Yeah, but Google does.
But Google does, yeah. But how do you differ? Like, that must be some like big difference between trying to put everything in that, like on that mobile has to be optimal, but you also know that most of the users or the buyers are actually on desktop.
I mean, ideally, you fix both platforms, right? So you even consider tablet as well.
Yeah.
So that's sort of like something to aim for. I don't specifically prioritize one device type over the other. For me, like all of them are equally important. Also, like usually, like if the users are on mobile, your boss is probably on desktop, so he's going to be spotting issues as well. So you want to cover every single platform equally, I would say.
Fair. Third one, fixing 404s and redirect chains is busy work that doesn't move the needle.
Unfortunately, I would have to say do follow on that. It's sort of true, even though it hurts me because it's something I spend time on, especially internal redirects are something that like I usually, sort of look into and report a lot. But it is true that it has very, very little impact, I think. But like I said before, right, a website is made of lots of small details, and this is just one more of the details that also deserves its own attention, right?
Yeah, but probably maybe prioritized a bit lower.
Exactly, and
depending on the impact.
And that's usually what I do.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, so they always end up in the pile where we should fix this at some point, but we have a lot of other work that
usually what I mean with internal redirects or 404s, I would mark them as a higher priority if they're recurring. For example, if they're in navigation, footer, or menu, or whatnot. And it's just like it's a simple fix as well.
Yeah.
But like content internal redirects, where it's just like a single redirect, I think it's up to 5 or 4 that you can have like before it actually becomes quote unquote dangerous. So yeah, it's not something that I would mark high priority unless it's if it's recurring.
Yeah, because in my head, if you have side-wide or annoying 404s, you just end up actually doing an internal redirect as the fix quotation because it's just another problem that might not have the same impact.
Yeah,
but
it's not the right way of fixing it, but fair enough.
it's a bandage on a big like a wound maybe.
Yeah.
But even though I've seen a lot of people who've done that, like a page gone, okay, well redirected, then people can still find the actual page they're looking for.
Rather have a redirect than a 404, of course.
Yeah. And then the last one. Schema markup is just for show. It doesn't actually help ranking.
Ooh, I would say big no follow on that one. I guess it depends maybe a bit on the sort of site that you have, but I mean, feature snippets like all the the site links and like was it the stars, the reviews, and all these things? Those come from schema mainly, and now I also believe that like with AI being so prominent, schema probably also is feeding into to being featured on AI. Of course, nothing is proven there, but I've seen some indications that might be the case.
So it probably has become even more important now.
I would say so. Yeah. I think a schema is really a really nice sort of it's actually really nice that like all the browser sort of came together and then created this common language between them. It's a very like Lord of the Rings type thing. Almost so it's a very nice thing. It's super old as well, so I think it's a pretty cool thing and shouldn't be neglected.
Now we're gonna open up a bit more and let's get into the weeds on something practical. So site migration, is that something that you have a lot of experience with?
I do, unfortunately. Yeah.
What is the stupidest mistake you have seen over and over again in these kind of migrations? Because I know there's a lot of moving parts and there's a lot of timing that has to be on point.
I mean, there's two things, right? So the one, of course, is like you migrate the site, you forgot to remove your no follow, no index. That's pretty terrible. I've seen that happen one or two times, but it's kind of rare. But I think something that is much more common and is really unfortunate is that using the migration as an opportunity to optimize the site. And that's usually causes a lot of problems because everybody's saying, okay, we're going to migrate the site. Now's the time to do cleanup and change the design and everything like that. But this just adds more complexity to our migration. So ideally, you fix as much stuff as possible before you start migrating, and then anything else you can do that after the migration. But I would not do that during the migration. When doing a migration, it's important to sort of try to keep the site one-to-one, so that you end up with the same amount of pages, same, same sort of like website that you had before, just with a sort of different framework or different design.
Sure, yeah. But I guess that's very common to actually do that and say, okay, we're doing a migration, we're building a new website. It doesn't make sense to build something that we're probably going to remove in 6 months.
Yeah.
So you usually end up with a lot of pages that doesn't have any, let's say, endpoint in the new migration, in the new setup.
Yeah.
And then you end up with a lot of I've seen this a couple of times as well. A lot of problems where you just lose rankings and keywords because you didn't have the same landing pages. You don't have the same intent.
Yeah, that's really bad. So you also need to map all your URLs and make sure that everything that used to be indexed is now going to a new place that is populated and whatnot. So that's what makes it more difficult if people start changing stuff, a couple of days before the migration and whatnot, or even during the migration. Actually, that's the common occurrence is that you are migrating and then someone comes in like, oh, I have this idea or whatnot, I want to do this on the side, and it's like, now's not the time. A month or two ago was the time, or a month or two after this is the time. Because that's also the problem, is that when you have the site migration, you sort of want to measure the impact. And if you start changing too many things during migration or right after migration, then you don't have a clear idea of what is moving the needle. So
that kind of correlates back to the whole thing that where if you do technical SEO, what moves the needle compared to if content has been made and all that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Which is really hard in SEO. That's just the game, I guess. Yeah. Okay, so when you're just doing a technical audit in general, I know you said you had this big checklist and we do the same checks every time, but are there like 3 to 5 things that you would always start with? Yeah. That's maybe not the checklist.
I mean, yeah, usually before I even look at the checklist or whatnot, I usually just get an idea of the site. And so like I just run it on Screaming Frog and then some like GTmetrix or web page test or whatnot, some sort of like tool like that, Pagespeed Insights. And I check it on DevTools and I looked at the network tab and I see how things are loading. And that's usually sort of gives me a really good idea of like the state of the site and like the hygiene of the site, how people have been taking care of the site for a while. And that, instantly gives me a sort of like clues into where the problems are going to be. Right. So if I see, like a bunch of 404s, then I know, okay, their internal linking is like terrible, that nobody's looking at this, and then there's going to be a lot of problems in that regard. Probably the sitemap is also messed up or whatnot, so that sort of tells me where to look in further detail.
Yeah, so you have this kind of let's say the human eye test first,
exactly,
and then you go through the checklist maybe.
Yeah,
because I know there's of course there are some problems that causes even more damage on rankings than others. So maybe looking after that first.
I mean, I don't really know, because like for me, I mean, any issue is important. All issues should be fixed. There's no issues that there are like, that's fine, we can just leave that as it is. I never have this sort of mentality, right? You want to aim for perfection. By aiming for perfection, essentially, even if you fall short, you still land in a good place, right? So I always try to focus on all the different issues that there might be available, and then afterwards sort of consider the site, the type of site and whatnot, where are their business priorities and whatnot, and that sort of helps me put up the priorities for these different issues. But I would still list all the different issues that I could find.
Yeah. Because I think we disagree a bit here, because when you look at the SEO from a whole perspective, there's always going to be prioritization, and then in my head there's a lot of technical fixes that might not move the needle as much in revenue and traffic and stuff like that. So they usually get pushed away. If you look at it from a complete SEO perspective instead.
No, for sure. I mean, like we just spoke about the internal redirects that don't move the needle, essentially. But I will still report them, and if there are excessive amounts of them and they are in like recurring places like navigation, then I might make it like a medium priority or whatnot.
Now it's time for, we call it this just a rapid fire.
Okay.
It's a bit more just like I like the do follow no follow, but this time I'm gonna say a small statement or something from your daily life with SEO. And I just want a quick answer.
Okay.
Short, quick answer. No long explanations.
I will try.
If we can make this happen. Okay. What's the fastest way to find out what's actually slowing down a site?
I would say Pagespeed Insights.
And what do you look for in PageSpeed Insights?
The score.
The biggest red ones, or like what to fix?
Just I would say just the score, just to give a quick idea if the site is good or bad, tech wise, and you would just look at the score. Yeah. If it's green, is good. If it's red, it's bad.
Green is good. Yeah, I love that. Yeah. Who's the most annoying person in a marketing team from a technical SEO perspective?
Oh, from a technical SEO perspective.
Yeah, we're talking like it's your perspective.
Boss, obviously. I would say.
Boss?
Yeah, of course. The one that comes with all the ideas that you can't refuse or that you have to argument against or whatnot. But luckily that doesn't happen a lot to me. But I would assume that would be the worst one. Yeah,
the biggest. Okay. The most common redirect mistake you fix?
The most common redirect mistake I fix.
So is it usually
the internal redirects?
Internal? Is it the Facebook page is gone because you linked or changed the name? Or is it...
No, I would say just like internal redirects in the menu or the footer, I guess.
So just regular navigation, I guess.
Yeah.
The dumbest technical optimization you've seen?
Oh, wait, I want to go back to the other one.
Okay, yeah.
So forgetting the www or forgetting the HTTPS, that's the most common one that happens all the time. Where content people are adding links and then they forget to, either add the www or remove it or whatnot. That happens a lot, and that's
or just add a HTTP.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. The non-secure protocol. Yeah.
Okay. We'll go back to the next one. The dumbest technical optimization you've seen. So an idea where they say this is important and major, but didn't have anything.
Okay, so actually the dumbest one is this, the thing I started talking about in the beginning, which is this delaying JavaScript on user interaction, because essentially you're just like you're just lying to the bots. So I think that's sort of like the dumbest way of fixing a site, because you're not really fixing the site, you're just like delaying the problems for later. And so the bots, the PageSpeed Insight bots and whatnot, they can't see that. But yeah, that's essentially it.
Okay, now one tool that you use daily that others might not use or sleep on?
Screaming Frog.
Screaming Frog?
Screaming Frog.
You don't think that... A die-hard fan?
Die-hard fan of Screaming Frog.
Yeah, of course. But are there any tools that might be niche that you use that you think other people might not use?
Well, I mean, there's a lot. I would like shout out for like SEO Gets, for example. That is like super useful, I find.
Oh yeah, Matthew. Yeah.
It's super, super, super cool. And I actually tried to recreate something similar, but it's just like takes forever and whatnot. But then like here you have it, and it's free as well.
Yeah.
They have a free tier, so I think it's really good and pretty niche. I showed it to Mohammed, for example. He did not know about it, so he checked it out and he liked it a lot.
Yeah. Now the most overrated technical SEO best practice, if we want to call that. So is there a commonly known best practice that you think is really overrated?
Accessibility. So there's a lot of like these, so there's like in dev tools, you have these different metrics. You have like performance, and then you have accessibility, SEO, and something else. And accessibility, I think like nobody focuses on that. And it's really important in a way. It makes sense that it's really important, but I think it's a bit overrated. Maybe, the contrast of the colors and whatnot. And sometimes I see, to fix that, you need to change the shade of paint from this to that. And there's like no difference essentially. And it's like, just to get the green check mark from Google, you have to change your whole branding color just because, because the number is too low or whatnot. So it's sort of like people can read that.
I kind of want to get your review on another thing here, because the EU has put in this whole accessibility law now. So if you're big, you have to comply to all of these. But I guess that's more of a compliance issue rather than being a SEO issue.
It's like standardization, right? So you have to draw the line somewhere and say like, this is readable, this is not readable, this is accessible, this is not accessible, and somewhere the line has to be drawn, and it's never just black and white. It's always sort of a gradient, right? And so there, I think there's some people lose out on being too close to the edge, and then they fall on the negative side essentially. But
yeah, but now where it has become a law instead of just being best practices.
I mean, I like the fact that technical SEO stuff is becoming law. That sounds pretty good. So I'm not necessarily against it, but it is, I would say, pretty overrated.
Okay. And the last one, your go-to fix when a page won't rank despite good content. So we have optimized the content, we have maybe some sort of linking. It's still not ranking. Is there any technical fixes that you go straight to?
delaying JavaScript user interaction. No, but yeah, just generally like it will depend on the site and the setup that they have. But I would guess caching, probably. You know, is sort of a big problem on a lot of sites. Even almost no one can get it 100% right. So that's something I would look into at least for sure.
Fair. Do we have any hot takes within technical SEO that might, like, some people think is wrong, but you think is right?
I'm trying to think about it, but I'm not 100% sure, if I can say no. If nothing really comes to mind 100%. It's probably something with AI and zero-click searches or something like that. But there's just so much to think about. There's so much information, especially right now, and like controversial takes are being put out all the time. But I mean, everybody buys links, even though Google says no. I mean, there's just so much, right? And but my mind is blank at the moment. I guess there's just too many things. But I think all SEOs generally sort of agree. And now there's being more polarization happening with this AI and GEO and whatnot. So I think that there's sort of like a storm brewing now in the SEO community in regards to that. I've seen some like people like sort of bickering with each other about like how to optimize and what is like even just the term GEO, and it's like this is just regular SEO and whatnot. I do think that is something to take like really seriously. And there are like some low practical SEO things that can be used in order for GEO, but it's something that is like just starting out now, and nobody really knows anything specific about it. So it's actually really interesting. And
is the technical SEO, let's say, pillar more like a general consensus rather than maybe some of the other pillars? Because I know there's a lot of difference in religion and like opinion-based things in content or link building as well.
Yeah. So luckily, technical SEO is much more like scientific than general SEO. General SEO is just guessing, essentially. It's like philosophy or whatnot.
Guessing and testing,
Yeah. But of course you can apply some science to it, of course, by testing. You're right. But in technical SEO, it's like either it works or it doesn't, right? So it's a bit easier to sort of like figure out where to act upon.
Yeah, I also guess that technical SEO is more based on usability and stuff like that. That's more data measurable.
Yeah.
Whereas it can be really hard to say, is this text helpful? Or is this backlink the best for you?
Yes.
Or
where technical SEO can sort of overlap there, however, is also the fact that there's like this whole automation boom going on, right? And that's something that technical SEOs are very, inclined to sort of like deep dive into, because it's just in our nature essentially. To think like that, right? To think like, oh, this process can be automated like this or whatnot. And so I think that there's a lot of potential there essentially.
Now let's talk about. Go a little bit back to this whole thing about like working with developers, but let's also include designers. How do you actually get them to implement the changes that you suggest or recommends without this turning into a lot of discussion and a whole like a 6-month strategy talk and like, what should we do and back and forth?
With the developers, it's usually quite simple and straightforward. It's like, we need to do this, and then the developer says we can or we cannot, and then they do it or they don't. It just boils down to that essentially. Of course, sometimes communication goes a bit back and forth where we try to figure out a solution, but usually it's pretty helpful. With designers, it's a bit different because it just sort of like comes after the fact. Usually, it's not something that I'm in a habit of like thinking about, right? But of course, there's I think there's more problems between designers and developers than there are between designers and tech SEO, because designers are going to, of course, just create something beautiful and whatnot without thinking necessarily of the implication that it has for developers. So, and then developers comes to the tech SEO and asking like, hey, how are we supposed to do this? It's gonna like destroy the page performance, or like or even worse, they just like implement that exactly as the designer did it, And then the technical SEO comes and sees like, what is all this? We have to fix all that now. And then there's maybe some sort of like conflict with the designer and stuff. So there's a lot of communication actually that needs to happen. But that I don't think happens a lot actually, unfortunately.
Have you tried having just because once I've had this conversation with a designer whether we should do like pagination or load more or infinity scroll, because there's a really big difference what makes sense for a UX UI designer in that regard and SEO that's just trying to index as much as possible in the best practice.
Yeah, I mean, as an SEO, just go for the pagination, right? That's sort of the easier one to deal with. It's just old school works and whatnot, and also that's also sort of a problem, right? It's like how many people are actually going to click on page 2,
Yeah.
So then who are you actually building this for?
Yeah.
And that's a sort of like a problem that is often encountered with UI UXers, is that they're going to create everything as perfect as they can with these cool features and whatnot, but the best design is essentially the simplest one, right? So
yeah. And now we're gonna pop a bit more into this whole AI tools and see, because there's a lot of like new tools popping up like every day.
Yeah.
Have you found some tools so far that's actually good, that uses AI to like enhance your work or maybe your processes?
ChatGPT has completely changed. I don't think it's just me, but like everybody's way of working. And what would take me 10 hours now takes me 10 seconds. So it's really, really helpful. But beyond that, there's, like you say, a lot of different tools popping up. Like things like SEO Auto comes to mind, or Jet Octopus, I think, or something like that. So different tools that essentially, Web Page Test also does this, where they essentially, you just put in a script or whatnot on your site, and then it will do the optimizations for you directly. We can get this on content as well.
Yeah.
It seems like a bit, risky to do those implementations, but I think that's where we're going towards. I think a lot of the things that maybe I'm doing on the daily, will be automated directly, like natively. So yeah, it's interesting to see.
So do you have any concrete examples where you had one process or one task that has changed with the use of ChatGPT?
Yeah, I mean, I use it a lot for scripts and whatnot. So just generating different scripts, generating formulas and stuff like that. That just really helps out a lot. But then also it sort of like expands what you're able to do, right? So I don't know Python at all, but ChatGPT does. And suddenly I could just ask it like, hey, can you make me this thing? And then it actually just gives me the code, and I can just like sort of still understand what it's doing and debug it however, and change it, customize it however I want. So there's just like so many different applications for it, like JavaScript bookmarklets and whatnot, and different things like that you can use to improve your work, improve other people's work and stuff.
Awesome. I need to tell that to my boss or our boss so we can actually get those implemented. Has your process changed with the use of AI? Like this whole, we've talked about designers and developers as well. Has the communication part and like trying to explain like what, how, and why it changed with the use of AI because it's easier?
I mean, I don't think there's a single aspect of my life that hasn't changed from AI, right? I mean, like even personally and whatnot, like everything just like revolves around it somehow. And it just came like a storm. You just don't expect it, and then suddenly you're just like asking ChatGPT everything, like everything, and yeah, I find myself in that situation more and more. But yeah.
And then lastly, is your job in danger of being automated based on all these tools? And it'll scrape all the problems, tell the fixes to developers, and then
I mean, I think some of it, but I think it's changing more than anything. I think there's a lot of like new things that AI is now enabling us to do, and that's where tech SEOs will be. Like I said also before, tech SEO and automation are very closely linked to each other. And AI and and automations are essentially synonyms almost. So there's a lot of like sort of like bridges between all these different things. So I don't think that we're gonna lose out on our job or anything like that. But definitely it will change. I think. Yeah, I'm hoping
adapt to the new future instead. Because
exactly
in my head, technical SEO is also more of a person who knows SEO, but also knows how to like the code and the whole engine works behind the scenes. So I guess it seems quite natural to go that route, because I've seen the same with content SEO. You're going from actually being a SEO writer to being an SEO editor instead. So you're not doing the grunt work, but you're trying to like more pushing it to the strategy level instead. So I guess that's kind of the same tech SEO.
Yeah, I mean, we're not quite there yet, but we're getting there. And I think that I haven't really experimented with these like, tools that, do the implementations themselves. But yeah, it's really exciting. And I think that it's gonna, free up a lot of time that then I can use on doing a lot of other stuff that AI still can't do.
I guess that was a wrap for today.
All right.
It has been lovely talking even more about technical SEO from a guy who's doing the grunt work every day. It's a bit of an eye opener, because when you're trying to fit all three pillars into one SEO and one KPI, then it's always a good thing to hear the perspectives of someone who are even more specialized in that. So
it's a pleasure.
Thank you for participating. It's been a pleasure having you here, and I guess we'll talk soon again.
Yeah, sounds good.